Welcome to the channel, Infinite Exploit, where we learn and have fun. Let's get started and Brody, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Love you guys.
So in this video, we're going to talk about data types. And data types is just declaring the type of data that we're going to be storing inside of variables. And variables are those containers that I was telling you about earlier that stores information. So I'm going to do a couple examples here. So if I do a character variable, I do char, that stands for character, and I'll call this variable grade. And this is just one single character. We can use a string if we're storing more than one character. So instead of one single character like A, I can do another one. I can do string, and I call it phrase. And I can use double quotation marks here, and I can say infinite. So it's different situations where you use a char or a string. So instead of plain text, we can do numbers as well. So it's a couple of different type of numbers. We have floats, which is decimal numbers, and we got whole numbers. So think about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So when we're working with a number that has a decimal point after it, C++ is going to be able to differentiate the difference. So if we do a number, I can do int, which is int for integer, and I call the variable age. I can do a negative number, like 30. I can do a positive number. Now, I can't do decimal numbers with this, right? We got two data types that can represent decimals. We got floats and we got doubles. Now, the main difference is how many decimal points it can store. If we need it very, very specific, then we want to use a double. For the most part, I would say just worry about doubles as a beginner. So double GPA, I can say 2.6. I can make it any decimal number I want. It can be, and you can make this negative as well, like that. Okay. So so we use character strings and doubles. Okay. C++ is awesome, and we can also use a boolean. Now, basically, what a boolean is when we call truths or false values. Now, a lot of different circumstances you want to use uh, this data type. So we do bool. So I do a variable, let's say is tall, and I can say false because it's short. Okay, or I can say true. Okay, and that's booleans. These are the basic data types. These are some other ones as well, but these are like the most common data types in C++. So, for example, what if we wanted to print these out? So let's do cout. I can print out any one of these. So if I do is tall, so let's do GPA and let's run it. So, so one of the most common types of data that you'll be working with in C++ is strings. So let me go ahead and do this, and I'm going to say print me. So when we do the NL, that means we want to print a new line. If I get rid of this, right, and let's say I do, let's say I do print me on a new line. Now, these are actually going to get printed on the same line, right? So let me go ahead and compile this. You see that? But I can actually do an escape and do this. Now I can have them printed on a new line this way, okay? So as you see, different lines. So if I want to create a string variable, I could do like this: string phrase. This is text. So what I can do here, since I already got the variable assigned to phrase, then I can actually see out phrase, right? And it'll print that variable. So let's go ahead and compile. Let's test. As you can see, it prints it to the screen. Now I can also check the length. So for example, let's say dot length. This is calling the function to check the length. So this should tell us how many characters are inside this string. So the way this counts, let me show you here. Let's see here, go right here. This is the first 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So spaces count too. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I couldn't fit it all in there, but yeah, spaces count too, okay? So that's why it's 12 characters. If I want to specify a specific character, then like we said, this is 0. If I want to access it, then I'll put 0 in here. So it should print out T. Anytime we index a string, we start at 0. Okay. Let's see. Change this because I'm not looking for the length anymore. I'm just want to print it. So we access that T right there. If I want to access this from the back, it starts at -1, then -2, -3, -4. So if I do -1, it should do lowercase t because it's the last character, right? So let's recompile and watch me text. So another thing I can do is I can modify a specific character in the string. So if I do phrase, if I want to change 0, the first one at t to lowercase, right? All right. So let's compile it. So let's see, and try single quote since I'm just doing a single character. Let's see. All right. So it changed it to lowercase, right? So if you're doing single character, you do single quote. Okay. You can find information about a string by using the find method or find function. I give it some information, and these are parameters. So I can give this function information that's causing passing parameters. Okay. So I'm gonna give it a couple pieces of information. So I can give it a string that I want to define. What if I wanted to define text? That means I want to see if the word text is in there. I want to find an integer. Now, if I want to see that it's coming out in the third index, right? I could put 3. So if I do 0, let's see where it starts. It starts at 8, right? And let's go back to that part so we can count it again. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and it's at 8, right? That's why I print 8 because that's where it started. So now we're going to talk about working with numbers in C. So one of the most common types of data that we'll be dealing with is numbers. It can be whole numbers, it can be decimals. We're going to talk about doing a lot of different mathematical operations with numbers as well. So we deal with whole numbers and we deal with decimal numbers. So decimals are considered like floats, right, or doubles. Okay. So if we want to do math, I can do 6 plus 6. It should give us 12, right? So so if I want to do, I can do subtraction. So it should give us 0. If I do multiplication, that's an asterisk. And we can also do remainder, right? So if I do a percent sign, that's modulus. And this is 1 with no remainder. So it shouldn't give us a remainder, right? 0, no remainder. And a lot of times modulus is used to determine if a number is odd or even. So what if I want to do order operations? Then I can put parentheses. I can do like 5 plus 5, and then I can multiply by 20. That way it does this verse, okay? All right, right. And as you can see, it added 10, and it multiplied by 20. Now I also can assign numbers to variables as well. So if I do int, integer, and I can call it num1, and we can say it's equal to 2. If I do a double, which would be like a decimal, I can say num2 is equal to 4.5. Right? Then I still can print them out down here as well. So for example, let's say I do this, it should print 2 to the screen, okay? All right. And I also can increment numbers. So for example, what if I do num1 plus plus, right? This is shorthand for adding 1 to the number we already have. So it should give us 3. That way, if we want to increment, right? And I also can do subtract. So shorthand for subtracting a number. So it should give us 1, and- and- right? Because we're subtracting 1 from this. So so what if I want to add a decimal number to a regular number like an integer, right? So for example, let's go 4.5 plus 2. It should give us a decimal number back. Compile this, test it. So we're gonna get a we're always gonna get a decimal when we're doing a integer and a double or a float, okay? So if I do like if I did, let's say 7. So what if we did it with decimal point like this? As you see, it's more precise, right? Because we have remainders. So I'm gonna show you some different math operations as well. So what I'm gonna do, we're using this IO string. I'm gonna add another line. So I'm gonna do another header here. It's just saying that, hey, C++, I want to use some math functions. So I can use some additional malfunctions. So, for example, what I can do is I can do POW and I could take 5 and 5, and that's basically taking 5 to the fifth power, right? So, so, so we also can do square root. So if I did, this should be 5, right? So I can round a number as well with the round function. So if I did like 25.7, it should round to 26, right? It rounds it up to the next highest whole number. And if I did floor, it should round down, right? It should just be 25. Or seal, it should do the same thing. It rounds it up with seal, sorry. And we can do F min. We can tell you which one is the smallest out of two numbers. So it's taking two parameters there, so it should print out 7. But it's a whole lot of malfunctions you can use. They're very useful. Now we're going to talk about getting input from a user in C++. A lot of times we'll be working with a lot of type of information, but some of the most important information is what the user gives us, and we want to use that to do specific things. Okay, so I'm gonna give you a broad overview of how that's done. So I want to create a variable. So what if we do integer? So what if I say age? It's just saying, hey, C++, I want to declare this variable. I want to use this. Now I need to give them a prompt. So I do C out and I'll say, what is your age? Now we can prompt them to give us the information. Instead of saying C out, I'm gonna say C in. We're gonna do greater than signs. And I want to store age here. I want to store whatever they input into this age variable. And I'm gonna store it inside of this, okay? Now we can print it out. So I say you are eight years old, man. So let's go ahead. So what is your age? 100. You are 100 years old, man. So he's ancient, right? All right. So I can also get a character as well. So for example, what if I said here, all right, and then I recompile, I run it, and if I say A, right? So now I'm going to show you how we can get a string in C++. Okay. What if we have them enter their name? I'm going to do a string, and what I'm going to do instead of cn, I'm going to do get line. That way we can get a full line. I do cn. This is going to be the command prompt is what it's looking for there. So I'm going to go ahead and put in this variable here. So hello, and I can have it say hello to my name variable. Make sure you always end your instructions with a semicolon. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile it, and we're going to test this code. Okay, so what is my name? Jack. Hello, Jack. So that's how that works. So now I'm going to talk about arrays in C++. So a lot of time when you're dealing with large amount of data, you can use a variable, but you can only store like one value in a variable. You can only store like one integer, one string, etc. So array will let us store a lot of information. You know, they can hold lists of thousands, if not millions, pieces of information. So this is how we'll create it. So we need to tell C++ what type of data we want to store. So I do int. I'm gonna say my numbers. This is how it gets different from a variable. We want to put open and close square bracket, and that tells C++ that we want to create an array because we want to give multiple pieces of information inside that container. So we'll do equals, and we'll go ahead and assign it some default information. So inside these open and close curly brackets, I can go ahead and put a list of numbers. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So we're storing those numbers inside this one container here, right? So all of these are elements. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm gonna show you how we can access individual elements. So we'll do cout. Say, what if I want to access that first element? I can do my numbers, open and close square bracket. I'll put the index of the element inside the array I want to access. So if we want to access this one, it's going to be 0. So it counts like this: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So save it. That's going to recompile it to get 2. If I want this one, what would it be? That would be 2. It should print 6. So first element is always at index position 0. Okay. We can also modify. So for example, what if I want to change the first element? I can do my nums 0, and I can make it 100. And if I print it out, it'd be 100 now. You see? I can also give this a size. So sometimes when I know what are the elements it'll be. So if I put 20 in here, that means I want to store 20 elements inside that my numbers array, right? So I can add more elements in here.